Hello and welcome to all of our viewers here today. I'm Fiona Lang-Sharp, IBCLC Director of Communications and MC here at Gold Learning. Well, today we're back and talking with one of our speakers coming up here at Gold Lactation 2020 conference. We're excited to be here today. We are sharing a lot of love today wherever we are around the world. Just take a moment and be kind to each other. So here we are. We've got Dr. Rebecca Powell is going to be with us today. We're going to chat with her in just a minute. I will tell you that she is part of our full program this year, speaking on Tuesday, the 21st. Now, I know for some of you, different time zones, you got to check it out. Go to goldlactation.com and you can look at all the different time zones and timelines just for your country. Our website recognizes those things when you log in and it'll update it for you on your profile. So you'll be able to have the accurate time that you can come and join us. Now, you know that when you come and join us live and we have our live speakers with us, you'll be able to engage with them and talk about different subject matters that they're addressing and engage with other delegates as well from around the world. So it's a great way to communicate, to build community and be together online. All right, let's get to it. A couple of other updates I want to give you. Quick reminders, of course. March 30th is our kickoff day. That's the day that Brenna Sampe is going to be with us live, speaking 2 times. So she is our opening keynote for our conference this year. And so you'll be able to come and look at the website and see what time that's going to work for you. And it's important because that actual presentation is going to be free and open access. So I know there'll be many of you coming to check us out on that day as well, but you'll also be able to share it with many of your colleagues as well. All sessions will be recorded, so you'll have the opportunity to come back and listen again if you're not available on specific days, and of course, replay them to catch all the information. Now, I'm telling you right now, with Rebecca's presentation, you're going to want to stop, pause, go back and listen again. Lots of detail and a really important subject. So I know with that, I'd like to introduce Rebecca. Well, welcome, Rebecca. Thanks for joining me here today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So Rebecca, you and I have just had a chance to do some reviewing, and I've been having the inside scoop, the sneak peek at your presentation coming up. And as I was mentioning, you know, this is a subject that, of course, some of us may never need to utilize or have the information to provide to colleagues or respective, you know, clients, but yet it is a subject that you've taken on. And so let's start by having you introduce yourself to our audience who are viewing here today and tell them where you are in the world and what you do on a day to day.
Yeah, sure. So I'm in New York City. I work at Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan. I live in Brooklyn. I've got 3 kids of my own, and I'm a microbiologist by training, and then a lot of that transfers over to immunology. So over time, I've sort of defined myself more as an immunologist because I focus a lot on the immune response to infectious disease.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've been in the HIV world for a long
Mm-hmm.
time, pretty much my entire career since I got my PhD.
Right.
Initially, I worked sort of in the field of the genetic diversity of HIV, HIV superinfections, new strains that emerged from that. And from that, I spun off more into HIV vaccinology. So, as you probably know, we've been working for 30 years to develop an effective AIDS vaccine.
Sure.
So, I've worked in that field pretty much, for a very long time, probably about a decade
Wow.
now. I worked for the International AIDS Vaccine Initiative, which is sort of it's a nonprofit that does HIV vaccine research in a few platforms, and that was my postgraduate work.
Mm-hmm.
I was part of a team that tested the immune response against different candidate vaccines, particularly in animal studies. And then
Mm.
when I moved on to join the faculty at Mount Sinai, I was also initially doing HIV vaccine research, similar kind of stuff. But then as I carved my own niche, um, I moved more into particular antibody responses to HIV, focusing not only on antibodies that can block the virus from infecting cells, but also antibodies that can just stick to the virus but stimulate cells of our immune system to do their work to destroy the virus and infected cells. So that's I focus on what's called non-neutralizing antibodies, which I will
Wow.
talk about in my presentation. So yeah, and I got into breast milk immunology because I think my personal interests uh were there from having my own children and becoming,
Mhm.
a lactation advocate. And then I wanted to blend my personal interests with my scientific interests. And there was, a
Mhm.
niche there because there has been, in general, quite a lack of breast milk immunology research. Over
Mhm.
the past few
Oh yeah.
decades, there's really
Sure.
not enough, right?
Yeah.
So there was definitely an opportunity there, and I've tried to take hold of that opportunity. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, talk about just about blowing me away there. Let's wind back to the AIDS research and how you really got into that. So, what were some of the factors? Because this really is an area, it doesn't always get as much press as it did, a couple of decades ago,
Right.
but yet there is still a continuum of a fight out there in order to improve things and protect people. So, what led you into this particular area?
Yeah. So, I think ever since I was in college and I really started to focus on, microbiology, virology,
Mhm.
immunology, I developed, I think you have to call it like a respect for
Mm,
how amazing viruses are.
mhm,
They really are in a lot of ways very hard to fight. They're
mhm.
very good at evading the immune system, and they go through an evolution themselves very quickly because they replicate very quickly, compared to humans, for example. The
Right.
timeline is so different. So, you do become amazed at how viruses in particular function. And HIV
Mhm.
is very special because, it is very prone to errors when it replicates. So it changes so quick, and it has many other ways to evade the immune system. And that's why, it's been very difficult to develop a vaccine. There's several reasons, and that's a couple of them. So,
Sure.
I think that was what brought me to be truly interested in HIV specifically because it's such
Mhm.
a huge problem that's taken so long to try and solve with a vaccine. And I agree what you said, I think it's not in the news like it once was. People
No.
think it's not really an issue, and we do have
Mhm.
great drug treatments. But the truth is most people who truly need those drugs can't access them
Right.
appropriately. So, for them to work, you basically have to stay on them every day for the rest of your life. And if you
Mhm.
have any kind of slip up for whatever reason, it can be a huge issue. So, a vaccine is what is needed for HIV. Um, so yeah, I think that's how I got into HIV work initially, and I've been working on it, since really my senior year of college in one way
Mhm.
or another. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. And then along came children.
Yep.
Yeah, and for many of us, that's sort of what happens too, is that, our prior lives, and then we find ways. And I was actually mentioning to you how creative I thought you were. Just looking at your presentation and some of your work, I just feel that connection in the sense that you're very creative. And I think that you've probably been, being very creative in establishing where you got with your children. And when you had your children and started looking at human milk. So tell me, what was the reception of people, or was there, did anybody care, or when you were looking at human milk, was it received well? Have you had to sort of stand your case and sort of say, listen, this is important? Kind of, how did that change for you?
Yeah, so definitely having my kids and getting, breastfeeding, getting into lactation and aligning that with my research interests has been a huge part of this. And I think in general, it's very hard to get funding for any new investigator.
Right.
To
Yeah.
establish yourself in whatever area you're interested in, funding is, especially federal funding, but I mean even private funding, anything is always
Hmm.
hard to come
Sure.
by. So, I've certainly written my share of grants, and as with all investigators, most have not been funded. That's just the
Sure.
way it goes. I
Yep.
think, yeah, I think that in some cases there's just a bit of a lack of, interest or understanding of the importance, and I think part of that
Mm,
does come from low breastfeeding rates in
mm,
America.
yep.
So,
Yep.
in general, that's always a question, what does it matter? Why, not a lot of people breastfeed. So, what's the big deal? Or, but
Sure.
also my research is has a global aspect, especially in the HIV context, because the women who breastfeed who are HIV positive are not in America, and they are told to
Yep.
breastfeed by the World Health Organization, and breastfeeding rates
Hmm.
are much higher in those countries for lots of different
Hmm.
reasons. So,
Sure.
um, yeah, I think so. Funding, I have gotten funding for certain projects. I hope to get more funding. I think there is an interest, but you have to find the right niche of funders who are interested in that work. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. No, it's very interesting because I think and I think about, where the World Health Organization stands on this. And so, in cultures where, it's not recommended, to breastfeed if you have an HIV mother, I think have we almost dismissed it now where, it doesn't involve us in some respect, but yet there are plenty of countries that this is something that is absolutely evident,
Yeah.
and needs to happen, like you said, for numerous reasons. So we're still seeing plenty of cases. Are you able to do your research with those persons who are breastfeeding in countries where where the recommendations are to breastfeed with HIV?
Yeah, so that's sort of where I hope to go next. I
Mm-hmm.
am forming collaborations with investigators who have cohorts in those areas,
Right.
particularly South Africa
Mm-hmm.
is a good area, to find collaborations with.
Right.
Um, it's a bit tricky once you are trying to use cells from milk, because I
Mm.
tend to need to use fresh milk to do
Okay.
those studies. And of
Yep.
course, then that means, everything has to happen there,
Quickly.
wherever
Yeah.
there
On
is.
site. Yeah.
I have more luck now. I'm starting studies just using the non-cellular fraction of milk. So that's what the antibodies are in. So that can be
Okay. Yeah.
frozen, sent to
Mhm.
me, and then I can, do research with that. So that's a bit easier, and I definitely have connections to cohorts. Some of them, were taken 10 years ago, but that's frozen samples, so I can do my studies, just looking at the antibody fraction. But
Yeah.
absolutely. So that's where this has to go next. You sort of
Yeah.
tend to start with healthy people to get a baseline in whatever you're
Mhm.
studying, and then you move on to the actual affected population and compare it and ask more
Mhm.
questions.
Excellent. Wow. So many things to think about. I mean, it's endless, really, isn't it,
Yeah.
in this field? And so that will be very cool. Well, I'm definitely, I mean, keep us up to date. I want to hear what's happening. And as I said earlier, for someone like me who likes to geek out on reading research, not necessarily doing it, this is you're an I like we're a good match. Okay, I'm just telling you, Rebecca. Thanks for doing the research, and sharing the message is really, really important. Okay, I'm just going to read the title for everyone so that they know what we're talking about. Once again, virus killing by white blood cells in breast milk. How breastfeeding is protective against HIV. So that is Rebecca's presentation title. Again, she's going to be here with us on April 21st. Rebecca, anything else you want to share with the delegates who are going to be coming to listen? What should they expect to hear from you on the day, just briefly?
So, I think a lot of my presentation for this audience is some necessary background on what's really in milk that maybe a
Hmm.
lot of lactation providers, don't really know anything about, and that's fine. That's expected.
Hmm.
So I try to give a good background about the components of milk, cells, antibodies. What am I talking about? What types of cells? What do they do? Just to get people thinking. And I don't want people to feel intimidated by the sort of real, if you will, data that's in there, because
Hmm.
I'm trying to just give a sense of things in in broad strokes, and what my findings are and what's still left to investigate. So I think a lot of the presentation is also just about thinking about what's in milk, and
Hmm.
how people in the lactation community can spread the word about what is in milk that is irreplaceable, and that can be spread among, non-scientists. You don't need to
Sure.
understand every aspect of what I'm studying, but I think it's still worthwhile to try and learn, as much as any person can, and at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's still a real struggle. So having someone interpret that information, being reminded of it, because there is an illusion somewhere that the equal components between infant formula powder and breast milk are equal or as good as. So it's an illusion that still exists amongst professionals out there. And if we've got more skills and more tools in order to provide amongst each other, little by little. So thank you for taking the time to help us connect the dots, so that we can share it with, our clients and colleagues out there as well. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you so much, Rebecca,
Oh,
for
thank
being
you.
with here
Yeah.
today. Yeah, this has been great. And I will look forward to connecting with you again on April 21st, which is going to be our big day for you and sharing a live event with you
Yeah.
uh, from your place. And all our audience will be able to come in. You'll be able to ask Rebecca questions too. She'll be here live. Don't forget you can utilize our exclusive forums for our delegates as well. And if you're still looking to register for this conference, still lots of time for that too. You can go to the website right now at goldlactation.com. Well, thank you again to Dr. Rebecca Powell for being with us here today. And of course, to all of you, our listening audience. Bye bye for now, everyone.
Okay. Thank you.